So thank you for reporting. All right, we are very lucky to have a very interesting speaker tonight. And thank you, Deborah Hurden, for introducing us to her. We have Jessica Roth from Gaia. She's going to speak about her work as the Plastics and Petrochemicals Campaign Manager for the US and Canada for Gaia, which is the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. She's been fighting for more than 12 years against climate change and for a sustainable, just energy system, working to stop fossil fuel extraction and infrastructure build out and supporting frontline struggles. Prior to her work in the climate movement, Jessica practiced law for a decade, focusing on civil rights and federal Indian law. She is based in so-called Brooklyn, occupied Lenape, Muncie, Canarsie lands, where she was born and raised. Thank you, Jessica, so much for joining us. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to you, and you can let us know when when you want us to advance the slides. But Rhonda's teeing them up, so that is terrific.
Great. Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I'm a dinosaur in how I work on my computer, and I only have one little screen. So I have my notes and I have my presentation, everything all in one thing. So if there's anything going on in the chat that I should know about while I'm talking, somebody please flag it for me. I'm happy to answer questions as I'm going along, but there's going to be time at the end for question and answer as well. Or just like wave at me on the screen, but I'm not sure I can see you because I don't see everybody there necessarily. But hi, as you have heard, my name is Jessica Roth. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently the Plastics and Petrochemicals Program Manager for Gaia in the US and Canada program. Gaia is the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, which is a global network of more than 1,000 organizations in 92 countries working at the intersection of waste and environmental justice. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Get a little taste of the things that we're up to. And as was also said, I've been working in the climate and anti-fossil fuel world, in fact, actually for more than 15 years at this point. My bio is a little outdated because I've been at Gaia now for 3 years. And I started working on the fracking fight in New York State, which was kicking off right as I moved back home after practicing law and attending law school in DC. So I've been working in some form or another fighting against the fossil fuel industry. And now I say I'm sort of on the other end of the pipeline fighting on the plastics part of the conversation. And since the conversation that I had with Debbie originally, and thanks for bringing me and introducing me here, was around incineration in New York City, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, about incineration and how even though we don't have any municipal incinerators functioning anymore in New York City, it's still a problem for us. And that it's usually greenwashed to be called waste to energy or WTE. And that really raises issues about waste colonialism. And I'm going to cover a little bit about the political climate that's making things shift and pivot from there into plastics and something that's called chemical recycling, why that's important, a little bit about extended producer responsibility fitting into that picture as well. And I'll mention a bit about the Global Plastics Treaty. I know that's a whole lot of things, so feel free, as I said, to stop me if there's questions or if there's things you want me to go further into. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with incinerators. There's obviously lots of people think if you burn things or you put them aside and you can't see them, then there's not any more problem with them. But we know that by burning things through incinerators, they're major emitters of cancer-causing dioxins and furans. They create neurotoxics as well, like mercury. They're a big source of fine particulate emissions, greenhouse gases. The pollution from incinerators causes everything from miscarriages and preterm births, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, asthma, and other cardiovascular and pulmonary and endocrine disrupting problems that are caused by all of these issues, including the CO2 emissions, which are greater per megawatt hour when they're billed as waste to energy than any natural gas, oil, or coal-fired power plants. There's lots of talk and recently a lot of sort of reification of the new clean incinerators that they have in Europe and how everything's so great over there. But As I mentioned, we're a global network. And in fact, I just came back from attending the um, Zero Waste Europe, which is Gaia in Europe. I was at their network meeting about a month and a half ago now, and they're talking about all of the problems that they're having with incinerators as well. The fact that they are newer, cleaner, fancier, all of that doesn't really get to the heart of the matter of the amount of emissions and toxins that are released from them. Um, a lot of countries in Europe are actually having like buyer's remorse and trying to figure out how to get rid of the incinerators now. And there is a vibrant community fight against incineration all across Europe. Um, so in Europe also, they haven't been blocked by the cost. In the United States so far, it's so expensive now to build a new incinerator that we haven't had any new ones in close to 30 years now. And that's been, something of a saving grace for the United States. For some reason, even though it is equally expensive in Europe, they are still continuing to fund them and then realizing how big the problems are afterwards. And even though it's unlikely that they're going to get built because of the cost of putting in all the new equipment and everything, there are currently at least two communities that we've been working with that are looking at the possibility of a quote unquote waste to energy facility. One of them is in Doral, Florida. You all might have seen there was a really big news story. I think it was about a year ago now, actually, where the incinerator in Doral caught on fire and burned for quite a long time before it was put out, emitting massive amounts of toxins. And now there are some of the local leadership are still trying to rebuild that facility. It's been a whole kind of jockeying for power of where it's going to be in which community it's going to be in. In fact, one of the proposals was to be right near Donald course, and that stopped that one right in its tracks. So it's fascinating to see how people deal with these issues when they are directly affecting them versus obviously when they're not. So, and there's also a community up in Sullivan County that's been fighting against the proposal of a quote unquote waste to energy facility that the local municipal solid waste um, contract or proposal is suggesting doing a study to see if that's a feasible alternative, which is really pretty wild because they're terrible, right? I mean, and the issue that I was saying of New York City is that we're shipping our waste to other places. They are either going upstate New York, they're going to Long Island, a lot of our stuff goes to New Jersey. So we're really dealing with waste colonialism, which most of the time is talked about in terms of sort of the global north versus the global south. But in these kinds of situations, we're dealing with the same kind of thing because our waste goes into communities that are predominantly Black and brown, lower wealth, lower investment. And in Newark, there's 6 current incinerators, 5 of which are from Covanta. Covanta is the largest incinerator company in the country, and I don't know if they're in the world, but they are massive around the world as well. They've tried to rebrand themselves. They are now called Reworld so that they can skip away from all of their past wrongs and pretend that everything is new and shiny. And so, in fact, when the local town leadership up in Sullivan County is looking at this as a possibility, they were brought down to the Covanta facility in Hempstead on Long Island and given sort of a dog and pony show where they insisted that there were no smells and it was super clean and everything was great. And so I called the Department of Environmental Conservation to find out if the incinerator was actually operating the day that that tour took place, because I figured there was no way that that was actually true. And they told me they would get back to me. And then about 2 weeks later, they sent me an email. They forwarded me an email that they had gotten from Covanta. So now you can see what the DEC is also doing around keeping track of our incinerators in this city and state. They are, deferring to the information that comes from the corporations that are poisoning all of us. So it wasn't until after that conversation, though, that I had the opportunity to visit an incinerator, which I did in Hennepin County in Minneapolis. And I will say it is incredibly overwhelming. The smells, the smoke, it was in everything. All of we got into an elevator and it felt like the walls were kind of closing in on us because it was so smoky, and none of the people that were giving us the tours were even wearing protective equipment. So it was wild to me that anybody could say that they had gone to a facility in Hempstead that was in operation and there were no smells or there was no issues. Like every single one of us that was on that tour came out with our skin burning and itching and like our throats feeling like they were closing up, and like we had a dinner afterwards, and everyone went home to shower and change their clothing, and literally our entire group like bagged up their clothing and put them away for the rest of the trip because they were so terrible. Um so the waste colonialism just is a self-perpetuating issue as well, right? Because they're using these places as a pretense of their great operations, and in fact, the local communities are also fighting them. We have a lot of members that are in New Jersey, in Newark, where there are most of those Covanta facilities, and then also out in Hempstead, who are fighting against both the landfill and the incinerator there, because those two issues are also super connected. Because once things are burned, you have to figure out where to put all of the ash, and the ash is supposed to be treated in a very specific way because of how toxic it is, and most of the time that is not actually the case, that it's getting dealt with properly. I think there's something like 45, don't quote me on the number, but somewhere in that range of violations just on ash treatment from the Hempstead facility, that the Sullivan County people were shown as being like this shining beacon of, clean incineration. Another just like side note, when I went to the incinerator in Hennepin County, they had like a basically it was a Talenti ice cream container, right? So one of those plastic containers that they had duct taped closed, and it had incinerator ash in it that they passed around for all of us to see. For starters, it's fascinating because some of it is actually like ash, but what they consider incinerator ash really more looks like fish tank gravel. So it's actually quite big. And so I think it's interesting because there's so many different ways that it can move from where it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be treated, right? Like it blows off of trucks when it's not covered properly. That was a big issue in Hempstead. But these are actually like little stones that like can get caught in your shoes and in your, all these kinds of things. So it's really it's a really clear how dangerous and polluting it is if you get anywhere close to a facility. Next slide, please. So you can see these are some of the toxins that are released, and they all claim that they're doing so far. They're all so much better than the requirements of safety. But in fact, even the safe levels that are allowed to be emitted out from incinerators are incredibly dangerous, especially to the communities that live around them, and especially in conjunction with there being other kinds of dangerous, dirty, municipal infrastructure, which usually is the case, right? Like all of these different kinds of things that can cause health impacts and negative, and poisoning water and air and land are almost always situated in the same communities, in the same Black and brown, indigenous, low wealth, low investment communities. And so there's always cumulative impacts as well. And that is another ongoing problem that the industry doesn't have to actually pay for sort of their full impact, because it's really hard to keep track of where all of the different things are coming from. And so, as I was saying, they are basically greenwashing incinerators to call them waste to energy facilities. But in fact, it is the most expensive and most polluting form of energy in the country. And even as they're being used now, the waste to energy facilities in this country provide 0.3% of the energy on our domestic grid. So it's such a minute amount of energy for such a vast amount of financial cost, and then public health and environmental and climate costs as well. It's so much worse than any other way that we could generate any kind of energy. Next slide, please. One of the biggest issues around incineration is what's being burned, which brings us to the plastic issue, right? When we were all subsistence-based communities and we burned our waste, there was very little that was actually going out into the air that was hugely problematic. Now, in fact, you can see there's so much that comes from plastics, and it's problematic up until it gets into the incinerator, which then is exacerbated by being burned inside of the incinerator. It's polluting and poisonous at every single stage. Next slide, please. And you can see these are all the different stages of extraction. And I will say that just even in the 3 years that I've been at Gaia, the conversation has changed. Like I was advocating, especially when I came in, about looking at things from extraction. And there were definitely people who were talking about starting the like life cycle. We like to call it the death cycle, because it's not actually life. and it's causing many, many problems. But the extraction wasn't always included in sort of the full span of plastic and its impacts. And over the course of the last 3 years, I think it's really become much more universal that everyone really goes back all the way to the beginning to talk about extraction. Generally, as that conversation was sort of heating up, it was especially our indigenous family, siblings, and friends who were talking about it, because it's often in their communities that that's taking place. So you can see that there's all these different stages of the plastic pollution cycle. Next slide, please. And every single one of them causes massive problems to people, right? Whether it's inhaled from and ingested at the extraction cycle. I know this is kind of small to see all the words, but I can also share this slide deck with you all afterwards. But there's, it's breathing, it's skin contact, it's in the water, it's in the land, it's in what what animals are eating that are producing food or milk or things like that. All of these exposures at all the different stages cause deeply problematic situations in the human health and in the environmental health systems, and in particular because there's massive amounts of endocrine disruption. And I'm not a doctor, but I heard a doctor speaking recently who was explaining how the endocrine system is really, that's kind of what tells all the rest of your systems to operate and how to work. So when the endocrine system is disrupted, it's like a domino effect into every other system in your body not working properly. And so the impacts are just so incredibly pervasive. And then of course there's the issues of, the breakdown into microplastics and nanoplastics and all of the ways that we are being inundated with plastic that was not, foreseen from the beginning. Next slide, please. And plastic has a
Can everybody hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
we
we can hear
lost Jessica.
Okay, so yeah. Oh, wait. Debbie hears her. Debbie, do you hear her? Oh, she hears her. Oh. No. Okay.
I think she froze.
Okay, we just lost her. Hopefully she'll join back soon. We see some of folks' questions, and we'll certainly get to them when she comes back, and maybe towards more the end of her presentation, since she seems to be kind of on a roll. Yeah. A horrifying roll. Could have pay contracts. Yes. Yeah. Okay. What is that? I'm not sure, but yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
I don't know what happened.
welcome back. We're so glad to see you. Everything all right?
Yeah, my internet's gone and then it came back. I'm now just hotspotting off my phone so that hopefully that won't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hopefully that'll get us on. And I don't. Okay. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. So, talking about plastic, I would love to know, although I can't really see anybody, I can only see like 4 of you at a time, but maybe I can open the chat so I can actually see it. Like, have folks, or maybe throw up some thumbs up. How many folks have heard about chemical recycling? I'm putting that in air quotes because it's not real. All right. I see a few hands up. I see a few confused faces. All good. That's kind of the standard. It's not the most known thing in the whole world. Savannah has been in many of these situations with me explaining it to people wherever we're going. But we all have written testimony about it. Oh, well, there you go. Fantastic. So maybe I don't have to tell you so much about it. But I will say that for anyone who doesn't know, chemical recycling or advanced recycling are greenwash terms, let's say, that come from industry, right? We all know industry is wanting to continue to extract as much fossil fuel as possible, and that we as a country are moving further away from using fossil fuels for buildings, for transportation, all those kinds of things. And they don't want to stop with the goose that's laying the golden egg until all the eggs are gone. And so they have to give us an out for how we deal with plastic. And the so-called chemical recycling is the answer. This is industry's claim for how to deal with the problematic plastics that can't be recycled generally just through mechanical recycling, and need special interventions to go Covanta. Covanta's we can come back to that. But yes, in the polyester and fabric context, it's definitely a thing. And most of the forms are just, well, let me back up a second. There's a lot of different ways, there's a lot of different technologies that industry claims are quote unquote chemical recycling, right? But the main ones that are being used at this point, and that's a still very small amount, are pyrolysis and gasification, which, as opposed to mechanical recycling, right, which like chops up the plastic into small pieces, like melts it down and turns it into something else, are supposed to be breaking down plastics into polymers and monomers and then recreating this brilliant virgin quality plastic with no emissions of greenhouse gases or toxins to create this virgin quality, food contact safe plastic out of all of this terrible stuff that's like filling up our waterways and all of our sewers and all of our trees and our parks and everything like that. Needless to say, if something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. I often have a snake oil label that I put in my presentations when I talk, because that's all I can think about when I first started learning about chemical recycling. And in fact, pyrolysis and gasification are not only are they burning, but they're actually incomplete incineration, because they are done at very specific temperature bands with very limited amounts of oxygen in them. And so as a result of that, the combustion is not complete, and it creates even more of the most dangerous toxins, the furans and dioxides and dioxins and those kinds of things. And so it's so much more problematic, in fact, than even just burning it in so many situations. And also, industry has not been successful at it, right? Like, these are mostly being successful at pilot or bench kind of levels, lab levels. There are a few places where it supposedly is functioning. I will say, right after I started this job, I went to a chemical recycling conference that was the American Chemistry Council was behind it. And the reason I went was because they were offering a tour of the chemical recycling facility that Exxon has in Baytown, Texas. Well, surprise, not surprise, even though I had just started in this world, they blocked me from going on the tour. I wasn't able to go and see it. But I did talk to a couple of people afterwards who said that I missed nothing, because in fact, they were only on a bus. They never got off the bus. And basically the tour guides pointed at walls and were like, behind that wall, this is happening. So even amongst friends, they're still not sharing information because there's nothing to share, right? And mostly what's being created in any places that it is doing anything is pyrolysis oil, which is an incredibly dirty, incredibly problematic oil that has to be refined multiple times in order to actually be able to use it for anything other than just self-perpetuating the system that it's in, right? To be the power for the pyrolysis facility. And even at that point, once it has been refined multiple times, and obviously at that point, discharging toxins every step of the way, it still has to be diluted by actual virgin plastic, because no product can sustain more than 2% being made out of pyrolysis oil because of all of those factors. And so even though they're claiming it's going to deal with all these problems, in fact, what it's doing is it's self-perpetuating prophecy, and it's making industry create even more plastic in order to bolster this like fake plastic recycling that they say that they're doing. And so it's a really big issue. And now that we're in the context that we're in right now of this administration, which is, as we all know, either chipping away or just straight out blowing out of the water, protections for health and environment and climate, there is a lot of concern that they are going to be creating loopholes through both federal legislation and through regulatory changes to allow this kind of incineration to take place like anywhere, basically. It's currently, pyrolysis and gasification are currently regulated under the Clean Air Act as incineration. Under the first Trump administration, they had tried to remove that from the category and make it not be regulated under the Clean Air Act. And it just sort of stagnated. And so then when Biden was in power, they basically kicked it out. They didn't make any direct, they didn't directly oppose it, or they didn't directly like put something in to protect against it because he did a great job of environmental justice work. But basically by just sort of kicking the can down the road, it's now back in front of the Trump administration again. So far, they have not made this removal, this like loophole, but they have just passed new incineration regulations that are talking about oh my gosh, I just blanked on the word. I'll come up with it in a minute, but there's a specific kind of incinerators or a specific amount of material being incinerated, and below that level it is exempt from the regulations. And even though it doesn't specifically talk about pyrolysis or gasification, nearly all of the pyrolysis facilities in the United States operate at below that threshold, so they would skirt any kind of regulation if that was actually challenged. This only came down a few weeks ago, so there's litigation being planned to challenge it, but we don't know what's going to happen with it. And we know that there's all of these different opportunities that industry is looking for to continue to, tell us that they're solving our problems so that they can continue to poison us. And next slide, please. So these are just the few actual facilities that exist that are supposedly functioning to do so-called chemical recycling. They're all located, of course, in Black and Brown and Indigenous and low-income environmental justice communities. Most of them actually shipping like toxic waste across the country. There's one that has now since closed in Tigard, Oregon, Pure Cycle, but when it was in operation, it was supposedly dealing with styrofoam. And in fact, what it was doing was taking it in there and then shipping it off to cement kilns to burn in other places. So even the things that they're touting as their successes, they're not doing what they say that they're doing. And in fact, when I was at that same chemical recycling conference a few years ago, somebody from the stage actually said, which still every time I think about it boggles my mind. She was like, for some reason, people seem to think that we're going to be able to take all of these different kinds of plastics, even if they're contaminated, and even if they're not being able to be dealt with in other ways, and even if they're composites of all kinds of different materials, we're going to throw them in a machine and we're just going to magically get out this like great plastic, this virgin quality plastic. I was like, yes, because you've spent hundreds of millions of dollars to make us believe that fact. And it was just such a bizarre like disconnect. I think it's like I was saying, it's bizarre to see passion, like to see like psychopathy spun as passion, basically, because all of these people speaking from the stage had just like were so disconnected from the reality of like what they were doing and how it was impacting and what was happening in the real world, that it was just like my brain hurt at the end of every day. It was just a whole like you just kind of can't wrap your head around it. So anyway, even these few numbers of facilities continue to close. I think there's currently 9 or 10 that are allegedly still functioning in the country, but there are dozens and dozens, if not more, of proposals for new facilities. So this is an ongoing issue that really needs to be watched closely. Like, do I think a chemical recycling facility is coming into New York City? Probably not in the near future. And also, like, the American Chemistry Council just spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy up in Albany on the plastics packaging bill that was moving through the assembly and the Senate up there. And so like they are looking for any foothold that they can get in order to move forward this ridiculous, not functional and incredibly dangerous technology in order to continue to sort of point us at the wrong direction. Like, also just a reminder, this is what they did with mechanical recycling, right? Like, industry knew mechanical recycling was not viable, was not actually going to do what they were saying it was going to do, and was definitely not going to handle the volume of plastic they were creating, but they were able to kind of point over to another shiny thing and like make everyone pivot. And it's also frustrating, right? Because that there was more and more understanding, I think, of that. Like, I think we're finally just in the past few years at the stage where people really understand that plastic recycling just doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. And then COVID hit, and then everyone got so scared about transmission issues that it kind of shifted the attention away. And even industry has said like COVID was the best thing that ever happened to them, which is, again, psychopathic behavior, right? But that's how they operate. And so we have to keep on these and monitoring these and see what's happening, because if people don't know the truth, then we're never going to get to the point where we can, keep them down. Next slide, please. And then just to say that a big part of the conversation, right? The reason that this is also all problematic is because it's dealing with downstream. It's dealing with the problem after it's already been created and it's been exacerbated and it's been dug in and entrenched. And we all know that the best way to be dealing with these issues is actually upstream, and to stop the production, stop the extraction, all of those other things that are all of the stages of destruction along the way. And this is a brand new, just in the last, I think, week and a half that this came out, a new version of the zero waste hierarchy, really considering about rethinking and redesigning at the top, but also thinking about a big issue is about like what is put into plastic as we're trying to phase it out. We're going to have to get rid of like highly toxic materials that are added, that are part of the whatever, the color, the texture, all those other things. And we know, obviously, it's not like tomorrow we can just flip the switch and turn it all off, but we need to be making shifts in how we're designing things and be designing them for reuse and for repurposing, and to not be looking at reuse systems that are still based in plastic, which is a big part of the problem, right, that we're facing right now, is that so many of the sort of quick fixes to dealing with single-use plastic is to make multiple-use plastic, but we need to start moving away from that as well. But I thought this was really interesting that this just came out. It also specifically says that chemical recycling is not a part, it does not count as recycling. So as we can get more and more people, more engaged and understanding what that looks like, I think that will also continue to be super helpful. Yeah, they refined their definitions around circular economy, closed loop systems, composting, recycling, and yeah. And also, and the other thing that was really interesting about this, which is not on the actual triangle hierarchy, is that they enhanced the language around do no harm to also be do not export harm, right? So to address the issues that we were talking about in the beginning about the colonialism around waste and how it's being treated within the country and then also around the world. Next slide, please. Yeah, so, and just to say that this is a problem at all these scales, right? Whether you zoom in close or whether you pull out really far. We're also engaged in the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations, which, as I'm sure you are all aware, international law under this administration is going to be a big challenge at best and really problematic at worst. And it's not like the last administration was being that great about the plastics treaty either, but the fact that there is a global community looking at this issue for what it is, and how it affects cross-border and cross communities and all of these other things is really important. And we in the US contingent have been for the whole time advocating to the United States, like, okay, if you're not going to do something good, then just get out of the way. And so we'll see what happens with that, because at the end of the last round of negotiations, which were in Busan, Korea, back in November and December, there were more than 100 countries from around the world that really literally stood up together to say, we're not going to take a treaty that just is a waste management situation, and we're not going to take a treaty that doesn't address these problems for the real things that they are. We don't, if it's going to be a fake treaty, we'd rather have no treaty. So we're hopeful, cautiously optimistic that the rest of the world also can bring us along, even if we're going to go kicking and screaming from the US. So that's my presentation.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. There were definitely some questions in the chat. So I think I'd like to get to some of them. I think the first one was from Kendall. It was asking about the EU and some of their requirements. Do they have a directive that requires a reduction effort for mixed waste prior to landfilling, either with waste to energy or some form of biological treatment?
She's muted. You're muted, Jessica.
Can you unmute?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. The question was, apart from cost, doesn't the EU landfill directive require some reduction effort for mixed waste prior to landfilling, either waste to energy or some form of biological treatment?
Yeah, the EU has a bunch of different, well, there's a couple things. One is our members are not just the EU, right? So we have the EU and then we have the Balkans and we have like, so we were actually in Montenegro for this, which was an interesting place to be in the conversation, right? Because they also have the waste colonialism going in Europe, where part of it is about where there's more land, because yes, you know, there's smaller spaces. And then part of it has to do with like culture and these sort of hierarchies within the EU of how the different countries treat each other. So there's a big part of the issue across the board in the EU, and I just realized, sorry, I skipped the EPR, the extended producer responsibility part of it, was that in the EU also, much like in the United States, you know, there's sort of they don't have the big overarching system. They have all these different little pieces, and they're different things and how they fit together for extended producer responsibility is an issue. For the land, there's a like a halting on the landfill. The landfill, they have to stop adding to landfills in the course of the next few years. And there are certain directives that are limiting what they can put into landfills and what they can do. I don't think waste to energy was one of them, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not an expert on all of the EU systems. I can certainly look into that and check back. But yes, there's diversion, there's biological treatment, there's all of those different things. But again, a lot of the countries are very differently resourced as far as how they can address these issues as well. And as far as like how much land they have to landfill, and they do still have a lot of incinerators that are continuing to operate. But I can certainly share more like numbers and things like that from the EU after this. That's not my.
Sure. Let's see, we'll take one more question from the chat and then go to Matt. I think Maggie was saying that incinerators certainly can be operated badly, but she mentioned that she's also gone to one specifically in Japan where they're exceptionally clean. They had electronic billboards that had real-time information on pollutants, so they did a much more scrupulous job. Like, is there a real differentiation between, you know, sloppy waste to energy operations versus more pristine operations?
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely some difference, but again, because of the fact that even the numbers that are legally required not being protective enough of the communities around them, it still continues to be an issue. Like I'm trying to remember when I was in Japan, if we could smell the incinerators in Korea though, which are also supposedly very clean and very, you know, so there's still issues that have to do with the emissions and the particulate matter and all of those other things. Like when we were in the facility in Hennepin County, they also had, like, they brought us into the control room. Like it's not the same, obviously. It's not like a billboard outside, but they will bring you into their, you know, into their information center, and all of their numbers, they look great. But again, the numbers are still not, sorry, just massive.
Yes,
Yeah, but there's still issues continuing to be a problem. And because of so much, I mean, again, most of the stuff is not visible to the naked eye, right? And all of these dangerous fumes and toxins and smokes and particulate matter.
Okay. All right, great. And yeah, now I'd like to hand it over to Matt. Matt, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great presentation, and what popped into my head was the Baywater, Texas example, because there was the material that comes into that plant comes directly out of the plastic production cycle, so it's clean material. It's not post-consumer material, I believe, right? I think that was one of the advantages that they had, and they wanted our own. I think the chair of our Environmental Conservation Committee in the New York State Legislature to go take a look at this fabulous facility, and he goes all the way down there, and they won't let him in. So that's in contrast to the work that Brightmark, which is a company that started chemical recycling in Ashley, Indiana, in a underserved, overburdened community. And they were taking post-consumer plastics and storing it because they hadn't quite perfected the technology that they bought from a failed Canadian chemical recycler who had been trying to do it for 30 years. And that was a tremendous disaster. And then miraculously, their stored plastic caught on fire, and they weren't able to do that. But now they're into renewable natural gas in that same facility, helping us with our organics problems. So a lot of good stories in the industry. But the last point I want to make, which is important, there is a competing EPR bill in the New York State Legislature, which popped up this year, which may open the door for chemical recycling in New York State. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on.
Okay. Well, good to know. Thank you. Let's see. There were some of the other questions. One person said, is there any circumstance or set of inputs for which pyrolysis is useful?
I mean, it is used in other technologies and in other places, and it's been in operation for 40 years. It just hasn't been able to be scaled for these kinds of uses, and the plastic is a problem. But I mean, overarchingly, my organization, is opposed to incineration. So it's not something that we support using, but the issue of chemical recycling is like a compounded issue because of the toxins and problems of the plastics all along the supply chain or the lifespan of it. So, that's also sort of goes to the argument, because the industry is constantly saying, oh, this is a new technology. Oh, we're just figuring it out. Oh, that's why it's still only at small scale, when in fact it has been operating for 40 years in other ways, and they have not still been able to make it operate productively this way.
Okay, great. No, thank you. I'm going to take one more question from the chat, see if anybody has questions here, and then go to Maggie. So Michael was asking, could you talk about the impact of put or pay contracts? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So as far as like with incinerators and landfills, there's all of these contractual requirements to how much a municipality is supplying to the incinerator or to the landfill, and then if they don't meet those amounts, those quantities of waste, then the municipality has to pay to the facility, whichever kind it is. And so these create like a self-fulfilling prophecy and lock in municipalities to dealing with dirty ways to address their waste problems, because they are going to pay either way, and they're stuck in this ongoing feedback loop, essentially. And it makes it, and then also sort of part of that has to do with the fact that it's also like captured resources, right? Like by building the kinds of facilities like incinerator or chemical recycling facility or whatever it is, it takes decades to make back the money that is invested in that infrastructure. And so everything that those companies are doing is to continue to make things more profitable for themselves and not actually addressing the waste issues of the communities. That's not what it's about. It's about their bottom line. And so they're always doing, as municipalities get more efficient, do more waste diversion, do more composting, metal recycling, whatever it is, they lose. They wind up having to pay more.
They still have to feed the beast. Okay.
Yeah, so it's
All
a
right.
lot. It's a financial lock-in situation.
Right. I want to open it up to the folks here. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Don't have to. Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there an easy way to measure mercury? Because that's very difficult to measure on the field.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can
Okay.
find out from our science and policy director.
Okay. Great. And with that,
Mercury
we'll
is
hit.
not hard to measure. They've been measuring mercury coming out of incinerators since the 80s or before.
Yes.
Okay.
What?
What is your question? Go ahead.
No, because we use XRF, and it's not sensitive enough to pick X-ray fluorescent. It's not sensitive enough to pick it up. I was wondering if there's a industry method, like you said. How do they measure it?
I guess she's asking you, as Maggie, do you have an answer to that?
Sure. That wasn't my point, though. You know,
We'll get back to you.
they take stack samples, and there are some things that you can measure for continuously. That's continuous emission monitors, and carbon monoxide and particulates, and there are a number of things. I believe even that mercury might have a continuous emission monitor. I don't remember precisely. They keep developing new ones. But even if it's not measured continuously, you know, if you take a grab sample and take it to the lab, it can be measured. That's why it's important to have the right particulate matter, you know, machines on it, pollution control devices, like, for example, fabric filters, which will filter out the tiniest of the particles that get deep down into your lungs, and then have an efficient scrubber to scrub out the hydrochloric acid and the SO2 and the condensed mercury and dioxins that would be condensed because of the reduced temperature. I could go on further about this. There are NOx controls, there's activated carbon, all of this stuff came out in the 80s.
Okay, so you can measure it at the source, but not at the deposition. That was my question.
And not where?
Deposition. Deposition. I haven't found a way of doing that.
You know, they measure it at the source because that's where the requirements are. You know, you're not supposed to emit more than a certain amount. And that's why I keep asking for data, because this is all a qualitative ad hominem attack. And, you know, we should be seeing, you know, tables of data and charts over time and things like that to say, well, this is how bad it is. These are the standards. This is how they are going beyond the standards. But I saw none of that. I'd like to see that. And the point I was going to make is that, you know, I fully understand and agree that incineration is near or at the bottom of the hierarchy. You know, I believe that since I left the sanitation department, who I was serving as their incinerator emissions control expert in the 80s, to go into waste prevention. But the point is, though, that you can't just shut down all the incinerators and landfills and expect that zero waste will then pick up the ball. No, you have to develop zero waste first. Once you've done that, then there's no need for the disposal.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there,
And I think Jessica mentioned that she can share links to their reports and those from our allies and members. So yeah, I think that we'll follow up, Jessica, if you can share those links later on. We'll add those within the minutes, and we can follow up with that. But it's a fair question, and thank you for asking that, Maggie.
Well, and also to say we do, there's only so many things I could talk about also, but like my organization also works in zero waste. So 100% support. That's what I was talking about, going upstream. Like we have to stop the production and we have to be creating alternative systems all along the way. We have to be doing reuse and refill systems, and we have to be empowering communities and bringing back, you know, to local economies. There's a whole mess of ways that have to be addressed. But it's also much harder when all all this money is being invested into these systems that we know are broken and problematic, and there's all these tax incentives and there's all these credits and all this other stuff, subsidization, when there is much less political will, especially in this administration, to invest the money in the systems that we need to be building up in the alternative, you know. And there are great systems. I mean, Savannah and Plan have been working on pilot projects like of reuse and refill systems in colleges across the country, and they've had great results. Like we know what works. The other thing is going back to the communities who've been doing the things all of their way that have been working. You know, I talk about a lot how I feel like unless you are actually descended from like royalty or like the most upper echelon of people, your family, you only have to, if it's not in this generation, you only have to go back 1 or 2 generations to be your family was doing zero waste, reuse, and refill. Like that's how we've all just operated. And we just have to get back we have to be reinvesting in those systems and in local economies and in safe, clean alternatives. And that's what I was saying about like not building reuse systems out of plastic, reusing actual things that are not toxic in those systems as well.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We've got a ways to go. And we appreciate all the work that you've done and your campaign so far. And, you know, for an excellent presentation, share with us your campaign and what you've discovered from your travels and from your talks. So this is really, it's been an excellent presentation. We really appreciate it. I'm not sure if there's one final question or anything else that someone would like to comment.
I would love to say that I just want to second Mary Ellen's and Matt's compliment of your great presentation. I think it's important to move people, and I think you do just that, and it was very impressive.
No, appreciate it. And as someone who's worked in the oil and gas industry, I know of what you speak. So it resonated with me. So I appreciate it. And so thank you very much. And I think at this point, we're going to move on to the rest of our meeting. You're absolutely welcome to stay, but we certainly understand with everybody's busy schedule, you may want to move on to dinner, time with family or friends, whatever you like, but you're welcome, most welcome.
Thanks. I think I'm going to take off just because I've been in back-to-back meetings since 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
So
I deserve a break. Thank you so much. And
having
all
me.
the more appreciative for you coming and speaking with us. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You too. Take care. Thank you. All right. Good stuff. All right. So next up, we're going to go on to the rest of our agenda. And the next on our topic is to get an update from the BP's office. But one final comment I'd like to make is thank you, Debbie, for making a recommendation on a speaker. If anyone within the SWAB would like to make recommendations, we are open to it all the time. We definitely are listening. So please feel free to send any recommendations my way or to anybody on the executive committee. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand over to Lacey.
All right. Hi, everyone. I don't think those of us at Borough Hall actually introduced ourselves earlier. So for those of you I don't know, I'm Lacey Tauber. I'm the legislative director for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso and staff this great body. Thank you all for being here. So I usually just give an update. I'll be super brief. It's summer, things are slow, which is nice. But I think we had talked about the report that we've been working on Interest 696, which is a council bill that would require the city basically to do more traditional composting versus anaerobic co-digestion. We are, just for some internal timing reasons, are looking at putting that out in the early fall. So stay tuned for more about that. And then I guess the only other thing I'll mention is that we got to do kind of a fun trash related thing earlier this month where we went to action carting in the Bronx to see the launch of their first electric garbage truck. Cool. It's sponsored by Sesame Street and it has Oscar the Grouch on it. So if you're around, I think they serve all over the city, so keep your eyes out for the Oscar the Grouch electric garbage truck. It's fun. And I think that is all for me right now.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Please stay safe in this scary weather.
I know it's crazy out there. All right, next up, we'll head over to coalition updates and from Save Our Compost.
Hi, everybody. I know, hi, Rhonda, too. So I'm Sherry. I'm the BkSWAB rep on the Save Our Compost call, and I wasn't actually able to be on it last week because I was away. So I know Rhonda attended. I read the notes, Rhonda, but it's up to you if you want to jump in and give a quick summary. But they had the speaker from Transform, Don't Trash, right? That we had at our April meeting. So they had also shared that with the Save Our Compost Coalition, and just getting the word out about this solid waste management plan work that they've been doing. So that was, it sounded like the bulk of the meeting. And then the other part of it was just some discussions on the budget and the city budget that funded community composting once again for another year from the city council. So we're very thankful for that. That gives a number of groups an opportunity to keep going with their work, and the master composter certificate course is still going. That's part of all of that, along with drop-offs and compost applications and street tree care and things like that. There's, we're still waiting for more details as usual because it's still early in July, but that was, good news to hear. We didn't hear about it until the 30th. So we were thankful that we got that confirmation. So thanks to City Council and thanks to all of you who've been supporting us at many points along the way. So we do appreciate it, and we look forward to another year of programming. So
that's great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Awesome to hear. Next up, a reusable NYC.
So I attended the Reusable NYC meeting this month, and not much has really happened, but they are still pushing for the Hydration for All Act, which is the Councilmember Powers bill that would kind of expand quite a bit the number of bottle fillers in parks. Unfortunately, there was also like another bill that was recently passed that expanded the number of water fountains, but it's far fewer, and it doesn't require it to be like a bottle filler, which sort of competes or takes away some of the energy behind that campaign, but they're still pushing for it. And they recently started a postcard campaign. So if any of you are tabling anytime soon, let me know and I can pass you the information for how to get some postcards if you want to, offer that to whoever comes to your table, if you're tabling or whatnot. Do let me know. And yeah, that was pretty much it for that one.
All right, cool. Thanks so much. All righty. Next up, we're going to switch over to the executive committee. And before we just dive into it, I think Beth wanted to welcome some new members. So Beth, if you want to jump in.
Sure, apologies, my camera's off, but our newest member is Devin Stuzen. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome. We don't need to put you on the spot, Devin, unless you want to introduce yourself and say something. But welcome to the Brooklyn SWAB. And you're welcome to say something if you want to.
I'm really happy to be here, and thank you so much.
Awesome.
Great.
Welcome.
All right, great to have you here, Devin. Thanks so much. We also have Susan Latham, who is the new head of the Queen SWAB, if she's still here with us. If you want to also come off mute and introduce yourself to the rest of the SWAB, I'm sure everybody would be thrilled to connect your name and your face and hear a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Susan Latham. This is Chauncey, who loves being on screen. I was just elected the new chair of the Queen SWAB starting July 1st. I've been a member of QSWAB, the organizing committee, since 2019. And I've served, I've been a composter for years. My day job is I work at Queens Public Library. one of the models for circular reuse, I always like to say. And I'm really looking forward to working with Matt and with Mary Ellen and Rhonda and Dior at in the BkSWAB, so that we can all work together, especially with the solid waste management plan that's coming up. But really, I think with the four of us working together, the four SWABs, we can really raise the volume on what's happening and really, work together to have a coordinated message about trash in New York City. And thanks for having me here tonight.
Terrific. Glad you can make it. Thanks so much for joining. And I definitely echo it. We'll be talking a little bit about the swamp in our update, but real quick, one of the things that we always like to do at the beginning of the executive committee discussion is to pass the notes, because we typically have quorum earlier in the session than later. So at this point in time, I know I sent out Lee Stark's excellent notes about a week ago. So if everyone has had a chance to read them, it would be wonderful if we could now take a vote on it. Do we have anyone who would make a motion to pass the meeting minutes from June?
I move to pass the meeting minutes.
Rhonda? And anyone else? Yep.
Well, I have a second.
And Pablo seconds it. So let's at this point take some action to pass the note. So all in favor of passing the meeting minutes, thank you. You can see some of the votes now. We want to. Terrific. So we've got 8. And
anybody here?
Oh yeah, certainly. Yep.
10. Anybody? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, 10.
Okay. Okay.
We have no.
I think if you do a view of, yep.
I counted 12, I think, so we're good.
Okay, great.
Good.
So the minutes have passed. Terrific.
Yay.
And let's.
Any abstentions or any no votes?
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. Any nay votes on the minutes? If people could lower their hands, that would be great. So Debbie, I'm assuming that you're not voting in the negative? No? Okay, great. Any abstentions? Abstain, okay. And then it adds to the thing. So we've got Jason abstaining. Okay, terrific. So I think it passes. Thank you very much. All right. So we just wanted to let everyone know that over the August recess, the executive committee is planning on doing a series of operational or housekeeping activities. Some of the things that we're planning on doing is doing a bylaws review. We understand from Lacey they're a bit out of date, so we're going to be updating those. We're also going to be reviewing a conflict of interest and updating that. We're going to do a committee operations review, just in terms of making sure that everyone is able to post their committee meetings on our calendar. We're just going to be making sure that we know who the committee heads are. We know there's been some transition. And we also want to take a look at the scope of the various committees, write them up. I don't think that we have them documented anywhere. So we wanted to write those up and really be very clear about the scope of the various committees. There could be some overlap. We were talking about tabling, whether or not that is outreach, definitely, if it's events, if it wants to be a combination of the two. So really just, we'll be looking for feedback. We'll be reaching out to all the committee people and really asking for feedback as we move that along. One of the other things that we wanted to do is talk about the schedule for SWAB meetings. The next SWAB meeting that we have coming up is September. It could be September 1st or it could be September 8th. September 1st is Labor Day, so we're thinking September 8th is probably a better time. We do have a list of all the meetings up on the agenda. So what we'd like to do, just in the most democratic sense, is to propose that we have the September meeting on September 8th, so we avoid Labor Day. We allow everyone to take that time off. I think it would also be tough to get a speaker if we wanted to get a speaker. So if we could now take a vote on the proposed set of meeting dates on the agenda, I'm not sure, Rhonda, if we can
Oh, yeah.
pull
Should
it up
somebody-
or,
Oh, yeah, the agenda?
yeah. We don't have to, everyone, if everyone has the agenda in front of them, and if we can take a look, we're just basically keeping it on the first Monday of every month, making exceptions where possible for holidays.
Oh, thanks, Sherry.
I'm not sure, Kendall, if you've got a question. Thank you, Sherry. Yep. And the one add I would make to it would be September 8th to avoid Labor Day.
The same as the
Nope, I'm voting yes on November 8th.
Oh, okay, September 8th. Okay, great. Oh, thank you, Kendall,
I think the vote was for
for
all of
everything. Yeah,
those dates that just got dropped in the chat.
yep. Sorry to be
Including
confusing.
September 8th.
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry
yeah,
to be
they're in
confusing.
the chat already, so do not make me.
Yeah. So Mark, okay. So let's take a vote on that. So if you are in approval with the meeting dates that we have within the agenda that Sherry has so kindly shared within the chat, this includes September 8th, which avoids Labor Day. If you could all raise hands, either visually or with the raise hand function within Zoom, that would be terrific. Thank you, Lee. Got both hands up. Okay.
7 there.
Yeah, and then
8, 9, okay, 10, 11. 11.
okay.
8. Okay, so 12.
Okay, so I think that passes based on Beth's previous. I don't know if there's any no votes. And if anyone has a no vote or an abstention, please shout out. I know everyone's in the process of lowering their hands or what have you. So if you have a no vote or an abstention, please just take yourself off mute and let us know. Okay, and with that, I think that we've got a schedule for the rest of the meetings through July of 2026. The one other point I really wanted to just quickly discuss is that we had a meeting last week with some folks from DSNY just to briefly talk about the swamp. They gave us a very brief overview of what their plans are, and they asked us to not share any of the documentation so far, which is a little bit unusual. But we're going to be having some further discussions amongst ourselves and amongst the SWABs, as Susan mentioned. And I think that in the September meeting, what our objective is to have a more detailed detailed look through the swamp to some of the analysis that we have done, and then really get everybody's feedback on what their thoughts are, what they'd like to see, what might be missing, and kind of take it from there. Any comments on anything? I know we've talked about a lot. I appreciate everybody's vote and feedback on the schedule. Does anybody have any comments on our plans for recess or on the swamp? Maggie. Oh, Maggie, you're
I
on
have a
mute.
question. I'm wondering if you could give us an idea of how eager or interested they were to hear our opinions of what all should go into the new swamp.
All right, I think I would leave that to Rhonda and Matt because this is my first rodeo on this one. So I think I would leave it to them, and also maybe Lacey as to. No, that's true. You weren't there.
I was not invited to that meeting, and in fact was.
That's right. We were told not to
Right,
share with you. Yep.
So
Well,
that's something.
I mean,
Yeah.
we did let them know that we're interested in having a hearing about it. So that's they are going to hear our opinion whether they're asking for it or not.
What did they say when you said we were going to have that?
They said, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, they seemed a bit surprised. Yeah. And I think Matt reminded them that it's part of our legislative rules.
Yeah.
It's part of our founding rationale.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think they were a bit surprised.
And just so you know, they're going to make they want to make a presentation to the swabs, but they want to do it to all swabs, so it will be shared in due time.
Right. Yep. All right.
So I also wanted to say that there was a little back and forth in the last vote about voting on legislation or policy positions without having a discussion about it in the meetings. And we put together all of the SWAB testimony that everyone most of us have been present for. So we should all have a good memory of how we voted and what our policy positions are as a SWAB. But we can certainly share it with new members because it would help for you to understand like the history of it. So we'll be transmitting that soon.
Would it be possible to put it on the website?
Yeah, that's what we'd like to do. Yeah, we will have to get it sort of gussied up.
There is actually a spot on the website right now.
I know.
Under resources. Lee and I had put that on there, and we can talk about it offline, but there's a spot if we have all of the PDFs to drop them all into, so we can
I know
work on that.
And thank you for that. That's actually what gave us the idea that we knew that was the idea to do it. So thank you for getting started with that. And we just want to and thank you, Lee, so much and Sherry for working on that. So Uli has very graciously put them all together. And when you see it, I started to look at the list and it's crazy how much work the legislative committee is doing. I just want to give a shout out to them again for all the work that they do.
Yeah, they do great work.
They have extra meetings. And remember, if anybody wants to speak in more detail about the legislation, about our policy positions, those legislative committees meetings are open to everyone and they are publicized well in advance thanks to Uli's organizational skills. And so everyone's welcome to join those meetings.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. And I think there's wonderful cross-SWAB collaboration. It's really a model. So we really thank them for all the work that they do. And keep it going. And it's not to really like downplay any of the other committees. I think all the committees are doing fantastic work, but I just think it's interesting that they're doing this cross collaboration. It can be more complicated. It's just, it's noted and we appreciate it. So thanks so much. And with that, I think at this point, we'd like to ask the various committees to provide an update on how things are going. And we can start with the illustrious legislative committee. Uli.
Thank you for all those praises. The committee appreciates it. Last month we met and we discussed a statement about the various plastic bills that City Council had before them and some commentary on that. So you all were able to read that letter and vote on it. So you're quite familiar with it, I hope. But yeah, so that did get approved, I believe, by all of the committees, all four SWABs rather. And yeah, this month we started a conversation about how we can help with the swamp hearing or how we can help in general. So this month, hopefully, Rhonda will come again and give us the marching orders so that we can help with that. And then I think our next meeting is July 31st. I hope you can all come. We did change the way we're going to do things. We started a Google group so that we can just send notices to people who are part of the committee instead of flooding everyone in the of the board with email updates. So if you're interested in joining the Google group for the All SWAB Legislative Committee, please send me an email that I'll post in the chat. But it's always going to be listed on the BkSWAB calendar, so you can always check there if you decide to join at a different time or whatnot. So yeah, thanks. That's it.
Appreciate it. Next up, Outreach Committee.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Well, the big news is we decided, and Jason Ginsberg decided that he would like to be the new leader of the Outreach Committee. And at our last meeting, we voted him in. to take my place. And I was hoping to, Jason, he's been at all the meetings, but how come he's not at this one? I don't know.
He's right.
Where are you?
Can't see me, I'm all the way in the back.
Oh, you're there. I can't see into that room. Great. So anyway, congratulations, Jason. I'm just going to say that at our last meeting, we talked not only about that, but we spent a lot of time talking about community boards and how we're going to connect with them. And we're hoping to put together a roundtable for October 29th, tentative date. And we want to throw that out and see what other people think about that date for a roundtable. It would be to get some input from community boards on what their waste issues are, and then hopefully have some resources to share with them. But maybe I should just turn this over to you, Jason, since it's your baby now, and you may have some more comments about that. Next meeting, July 28th, right?
The computer.
Thanks, Mark. That sounds good. I stand on the shoulders of giants, so thank you. I don't have much as far as updates go, and I'm looking forward to connecting in terms of scope and priorities through the summer recess, because I think it'll help define things for the fall. The only other thing I'd mention is the data dashboard is coming along very nicely in collaboration with Manhattan. We're meeting later this week to review some progress, and we met with Samantha McBride about 2 weeks ago to get some of her feedback incorporated into the tool as well. The next step is to start thinking about distribution and outreach of that tool. And the first step of that is if anyone in this group is interested in giving a finer look at it and providing some feedback or looking at your district, playing around with toggles and filters, you're absolutely welcome to. Feel free to reach out to myself, and I can figure out how to get my email out to people. But it's Jason S. Ginsburg with an E at gmail.com. Rhonda, I can write that on a note and pass it over to you. But looking forward to getting more eyes on it to test it out, and then hopefully doing a wider distribution later in the summer.
That's terrific. Thanks so much for that update. Congratulations for taking that on. We'll welcome you. And Mark, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. We appreciate the fact that you helmed the outreach committee for the period of time in which you did, and we hope that you stay involved with outreach. Share your wisdom, continue to share your wisdom, and continue to be part of it. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay.
One thing on that real quick, just I would say let me vet that date for the roundtable with our director of community boards. I think it's tough to schedule a meeting with community boards because inevitably there is some community board committee meeting happening somewhere, but like let's try to make it on a date where there's not too much going on.
I know, Jason, you did some.
For what it's worth, we triangulated a a lot of meetings that were publicly
you guys didn't have to do that. We have a whole team here in Borough. Yeah. Okay, well, let me verify.
Can I just ask a quick question regarding membership? No, sorry, not membership. Leadership of the outreach committee. Is Jason and Mark, is Miriam staying on as co-chair, or is she stepping down as well and it's just Jason chair?
I think we should ask Miriam that. I haven't spoken to Miriam in quite a while. But she's
here now. Like that. That timing is perfect, Miriam.
Hi Beth, how are you?
I'm
Sorry
good.
guys, I was literally watching the fireworks on Rutgers University for the Bastille Day. So sorry. And then I was like, wait, July 14th, there was another meeting. Okay. Yeah, no, I intend to stay on with whoever wants to share the. I apologize about my lateness for tonight.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. That's great to know. And Jason's giving you thumbs up, and so you guys can have a great working relationship. That's terrific. Thanks so much. And thanks for coming and tearing yourself away from the fireworks. All right. Next up, for Organics Industry Committee, is there anyone from the Brooklyn SWAB here representing the Organics Industry Committee?
I usually talk about it. It's the Organics Committee is like an all SWAB at this point.
Okay.
But actually, I'm so happy Jason was there because he talked about basically what I was going to mention. We just had our organics committee. William was there, so we were talking about the dashboard and everything Jason said is what I was going to share. That we're really close to kind of like finalizing the whole thing, and then we'll be talking to you and Jason as chair of the outreach committee. You know, obviously we will be talking to try to, you know, figure out how to distribute it. We were talking about maybe one of the first after we're comfortable with it, Samantha's comfortable with it. The first step might be to talk to DSNY's data analytics group and then figure out, you know, the other stakeholders we want to push it out to, whether or not, you know, it's an all SWAB communication or if each borough wants to kind of take on their own borough develop narrative. So all to be discussed, but I'm glad Jason brought it up. So that's about it.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much, Alan. Again, Allison, and thanks again, Jason. Appreciate it. All right, the events committee. Liz, are you on? All right, moving on to
That was uneventful.
the NYCHA committee. Any updates on that side?
The NYCHA committee has been active recently. They've had what they call waste dives at 3 different NYCHA houses or NYCHA campuses. And those dives started out where we wanted to get some scientific numbers on the, like a census on the waste that was coming out of or get some idea that came out of NYCHA houses. But it kind of evolved into mainly like promoting recycling at these 3 different NYCHA houses like Wagner and Grant. But they were worthwhile events, and we played recycling bingo, and we did mending circles and other kind of fun activities. So I think it was worthwhile just to see what things were like there. And just to remind people, if they don't know, that NYCHA was never really included in the whole recycling plan for New York City. So this committee works on not just promoting it with the people that live there, but also trying to get things set up so that it's actually possible for people to recycle in NYCHA. So the next meeting is September 18th. They meet on the 3rd Thursday, and it's at 5:30 on a Zoom.
All right. Michael has a quick question for you. He was wondering how the NYCHA residents reacted to your outreach. What was their feedback?
What was the feedback? I think they felt, you know, that the activities were fun, and I did do the recycling bingo, and they seemed to be, you know, conversant with the basics of the ladies that we worked with the basics of recycling. And Kristen Lasky, who is the head of the committee, set it up in a really good way, and there were really nice prizes actually for the bingo. So I enjoyed calling that a lot. So if anyone wants to be active with this committee, it can be kind of fun sometimes.
All right, that's terrific. Thank you so much. Is there someone within DSNY who's responsible for NYCHA?
That I don't know. This committee meets with, they meet with NYCHA itself on like a quarterly basis as part of some legislation. But I don't know if there's a actual, I have not heard that. Okay,
yeah. I think that was a question for one of the Brooklyn SWAB members. And so I said I would ask it within the meeting. Yeah. So
I'll try and ask later, at the next meeting.
Okay.
May I ask a question? May I ask Susan a question? It's Miriam.
Yeah,
Hi, Susan. Susan, I'm very impressed by what your action is being done with NYCHA. Did you visit the Farragut or the Brooklyn SWAB? Because I know that the Farragut is very active with NYCHA. So I was wondering if you could share with us what you did. Thank you.
All right.
the projects by Fort Greene by any chance, or do you have that in your plan? Because we could like do some joint action.
Do you know, so you have connections with NYCHA and Fort Greene, Miriam?
Yes, I have. I have many parents in the school who work for NYCHA or live in the project. So so we have the students and we have the parents, we have the families. So I mean, I can talk to you later or separately.
That would be good. Yeah, they would be interested in hearing
Yeah, we
from
could
you, I'm
propose
sure.
some. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And also, Susan, Betty Flybush within the Brooklyn SWAB also has contacts at Farragut. So perhaps Miriam and Betty and you all could work together on.
Yeah,
get
that's
together
true.
on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. And with that, I think that updates for the committees are complete. Wanted to go to general announcements. Sherry, I don't know if you want to talk any more about Master Composter, the ongoing courses, the celebrations that you've had for people. So I'll leave it to you to decide if you want to talk a little bit more.
Sure, I can just add for folks that don't know, my day job is as the Master Composter Certificate Course Program Administrator. So I work on all the back end part, organizing the network members and the registrations and tracking the folks that are participating and then actually complete the requirements, and we do a graduation for them. So as Mary Ellen mentioned, there was a graduation at the end of the year, just in time for the end of the fiscal year. And with the funding, we're spending some time right now just, you know, everybody's working on their plans and things like that, because we weren't sure if we had it. So mainly right now, the website, and thanks for leaving that in the agenda, has a couple of tours, I think, at QBG, but a bunch of volunteer activities that are available, because composting is year round. Obviously, everybody knows that. So there's lots of things going on, places where you know, help is needed. So it's ongoing, and I can update more as we get farther along in the process for this year. So it's continuing, basically.
Terrific.
Moving ahead, and thanks again.
Yep, and we're glad it's continuing. So very, very happy news. Thanks so much. All right. Next up, I think Kendall is sharing the fact that he's going to the Buildings Material Reuse Conference in St. Paul early in August. So if anyone's interested, they can feel free to reach out to Kendall for more information. I also wanted to share some information from the Manhattan SWAB. They were organizing a tour of an environmental justice community right next in Newark, the Ironbound facility. And they had let us know that due to staff changes at Ironbound, that the tour's on hold. An update on next steps will be coming as soon as the team and the Manhattan SWAB has them. So they appreciate everybody's interest and their desire to take part, but they do not have any date at this time, and it's on hold. Michael. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi. I just wanted to say that Paint Care we now have 70 drop-off sites around the city. But I also wanted to say that we reduced the minimum for a large volume pickup from 100 gallons to 50 gallons. So if your building has a minimum of 50 gallons based on container volume sitting around in the basement, we are glad to pick it up for free.
That's terrific.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael. And if there's any information that you want to share with the SWAB, please feel free to send it along, and we can share it with the members.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. That's terrific. Thanks so much. And there was a group of people. There was a Newtown Creek tour on July 10th, and there was a bunch of people from the Brooklyn SWAB that attended. Also, Russ, who just left. He's a new potential member. We met him there. So Uli was there, Bella was there, and some other folks also might have been there. So I'm not sure if to share any feedback or their thoughts from the tour. I know they've got another date coming up. I think Beth is going on the 24th of July. So any feedback or comments? Oh, the 18th. Thanks, Beth.
I think one thing that shocked me the most about the tour, and this wasn't something that the speaker said, it was something that that gentleman Ross had mentioned, because he has taken a tour of the waste management facility. But when they're screening out anything that can't go into the to be made into that like the compost bioslurry, whatever it's called, they actually like screen out a lot of the yard waste, and it just goes right over to the landfill.
Oh,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, that was sad. And yeah, we asked about the Christmas trees and he wasn't aware of it, but yeah, so that was a bummer.
They did say that they usually like from areas where they have a lot of yard waste. He said he thought that they moved that stuff to other facilities, that it didn't go through that processing, but who knows?
And yeah, I think this is the compost that just comes from the curbside recycling program, and they bring it there. I think it might also be the schools and the orange bins. Yeah, but probably yard waste is not coming from the schools and the orange bin. All right. I think, from my perspective, I was most surprised by the plans for 2030 and the network of wastewater treatment facilities and the plans for residential commercial waste going there, and the ADs would be at multiple facilities, Hunts Point and others, which I think is represented within Plan NYC, but the volumes were pretty high, and I don't know if that's been approved, where the funding would be coming from. So it just kind of raised a lot of questions, but maybe that's just the forward plan and within the current administration. All right, we've got some announcements within the chat. Unless Bella, you have any comments? I know Bella McCarr was also there.
No, I was very shocked by a lot of the stuff they were saying too. But I mean, I think it's all stuff we kind of know or have assumed for a while. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And one final comment from Sherry. She says the Lower East Side Ecology Center now has textile recycling in conjunction with many of its e-waste events. So please be sure to check out the Lower East Side Ecology Center calendar, and you can figure out when you want to take your e-waste there. I know I was planning on doing it this past weekend. I've got my bag, but I was not able to get there in time. So I'll be checking the calendar for future events and taking my stuff over there. All right. Any other comments or?
I have a question. Sherry, who was LES Ecology Center working with for textile collection?
I should know that. I don't remember the name of the company.
Oh, okay. But it's not our typical people.
It's not the ones at the Green Market. Remind me of their name.
Adam with Wearable Collection.
Adam. Yeah, it's not them. I don't remember the other company. I should know this, but it's new to us too, so we're learning it as we go.
Sherry,
but
sorry, I interrupt. Do you know, are they like actually textile recycling? Because I know like Wearable Collections kind of stopped taking stuff that was like really meant for recycling and was only doing like reuse, which doesn't help for all your things that are totally worn out.
Right. So, on the website, again, I was on vacation last week. I think they talked about it at our staff meeting. So I missed a fuller bit of information on this, but I can get it and send it to you guys. It does say on the like what is accepted that it does accept things for, let me see, ripped and damaged material and clean rags. So
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will find out more details. And I don't remember, I know Kendall, you said Help Seat. It could be. I can't remember though. So I'll find out and share it with you guys. And I will say, if you go on the website and check it out, oh, I see. They're taking over the DSNY building contract. So possibly. On the link that I just sent, it includes things into the fall. And I saw like one of them random has paper shredding too. So, you know, if it's in your area, check it out because it might be more than just e-waste. And it's not all of the e-waste events. So definitely check the calendar.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much. Any last call for the open forum?
Can I ask Beth, when did they change that policy on what they collect? I feel like I must have missed that somehow.
I don't know. I think within the last year, maybe even longer ago, but I remember seeing like a shift in the language about green markets and other folks. I see Lee nodding. I don't know if you know any more info than I do. I just know there was a shift and then it sort of became ambiguous now. And so it's like what I've been feeling very unclear about what to do with my textiles.
Because I feel like even DSNY's website says you can bring. Okay, well, sorry, Lee, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'm not familiar with any updates since, but I do remember around the time of some funding troubles that Grow NYC might have specifically said that they were focusing on reusable, undamaged textiles rather than scraps. But obviously that was a while ago, but I do remember that change.
Do you know what they do with it if it isn't reusable or if they don't deem it reusable?
I've heard that it can be sent to a vendor for processing into various waste products or recycled, reused products, like insulation, but I'm honestly not sure, and I don't know if they disclose.
Yeah, I guess Michael is saying Grow worked with wearable. And Kendall, do you know if Helpsy does recycling or is it all for reuse?
It doesn't really say on their website.
Doesn't? Okay. Right.
They have several processing facilities where they do, sorting, and they direct material to whatever markets they think is best for, the material that they handle.
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of vague. We still don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate you sharing what they said.
Textile recycling has been around for generations in New York for hundreds of years, literally. So it's a pretty well established industry, but very much under the radar that most people don't know it exists or have the opportunity to see it. Because the DSNY contract is shifting over, it's one of the topics that the SWAB should consider a presentation on this fall.
Okay. All right.
There's also a bill that Councilmember Hudson has about textile recycling.
Exactly. Okay.
I just want to say, anyone, of course, you all know about fab scrap, right?
Yes.
And that is not a possibility?
I thought they only took it from Fab Scraps took it from
fashion companies.
Yeah,
like
from industry or whatever you call it. Like they'll take it in bunches of stuff. If you've ever been there, like you go, you sort, and then you get some a little bit of stuff for your sorting time.
Yeah.
There is also another place that might, and I have the contact with the person who is running the program. It's an educational program. It's run by Pratt, and they cater to high school students, and they usually go get textile from fab scrap. So if we could ask them if they would be interested in receiving. I don't know who's asking here. Sandy, you understand what I mean? Rhonda, I think Sandy is saying.
Yeah, I know. I want to hear what I was going to ask her right after you finished it.
Well, so maybe I can do it with Pratt. I mean, anyway, okay.
Yeah. Sandy, go for it. Share your stuff.
Sandy makes pockets on.
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm working right now with, I have big piles of fabric here. I make all kinds of things with fabric, people like I just went away. I came home and there were bags of fabric at my door. I don't even know who left them there. I've been doing it for years, and I make all kinds of stuff. And I also put pockets on clothes from scrap. So it doesn't have to be big, though I prefer bigger pieces, but I use small pieces as well.
Okay.
And and you could, if you get in touch with me and say, you know, like I don't really want old graduation gowns that nobody wants. Like I don't want disgusting fabric, but I'm pretty open.
Okay. All right. Terrific. All right. We will. Yeah, we'll take that down.
All of Brooklyn will be at your door.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
You might not want all the stuff
She's
that's
gonna
going to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been a good conversation. The next meeting will be on September 8th. So I hope everyone enjoys a wonderful August off. And again, we'll be working, the executive committee will be working. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, please reach out. And thanks so much for coming to the meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mary-Hélène, congratulations on your chair position.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Mariam.
Good to see everyone. Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's try to get out of here quick so the building staff can go home.
I know, we could